Querida Ana, autoridades, amigos, es un gran placer participar en esta conferencia internacional que, como todos los años, reúne aquí en la ciudad del Santander un gran programa de oradores para abordar los principales temas de actualidad. Y la verdad es que temas interesantes y complejos no nos faltan, ¿no? Estaba diciendo la lástima que tengo de no haber podido escuchar al panel anterior sobre los temas digitales, pero verdaderamente viendo el programa apetece pasar todo el día, escuchar, aprender, debatir sobre las muchas cosas que están sucediendo en nuestro entorno, sobre el papel del sector financiero en un momento de cambio tan intenso como el que estamos viviendo, con crisis encadenadas que se superponen, que se solapan y que nos plantean retos para los que no hay una hoja de ruta clara. So let me start here, precisely talking about the lessons learned from past crises. A few weeks ago, as you very well know, the Nobel Committee awarded the Bank of Sweden Prize in Economic Sciences to Ben Bernanke, Douglas Diamond and Philip Dybvig for their contributions on financial crisis and the role of banks. In 1983, Ben Bernanke published a detailed analysis of the Great Depression of the 1930s in the United States. He was particularly interested in understanding how a recession could lead to a banking crisis and a collapse of production and employment that lasted for years and spread to the rest of the world. Up until then, economists focused on fiscal and monetary policies, but Bernanke introduced an important factor, the role played by the banking sector in our economies. The other two award winners, Diamond and Dybvig, did their research on the key role of banks as intermediaries between savers and investors. This intermediation role leads to large information pools in order to channel their depositor savers to the most profitable projects. And this set of information is part of the production function of any economy. So if you lose it, you lose the ability to assign scarce resources to the most productive activities. So the ability of the economy to function well deteriorates, worsens dramatically. So back to Bernanke. When in the 1930s, the US government and the Federal Reserve let a good part of the banking system go bankrupt, they not only deepened the recession with an additional shock, but led to an irretrievable loss of all the knowledge and experience accumulated in banks about companies, depositors, sectors, risk analysis, profitability, or solvency. Even after the worst of the crisis was over, the economy's ability to channel savings into productive investment had to be rebuilt almost from scratch, a process that took many years and caused much unnecessary suffering. More than 20 years after the publication of this work, Ben Bernanke, as we all know, was the head of the Federal Reserve when Lehman Brothers was heading for bankruptcy, unleashing the greatest financial and economic storm since the Great Depression throughout the world. The story is well known and does not need to be repeated. The biggest bailout of banks in history was approved. And I think that it is clear that lessons from the 1930s were key in the response to that crisis in 2008. Likewise, I think that there are many lessons learned from the great financial crisis that have helped us to respond to the pandemic and are also very relevant as we are confronted with the new challenges derived from the war of Russia against Ukraine. I am sure that many of the speakers throughout the day are going to be speaking and have already been speaking about inflation, about debt, about global trade, growth, financial stability, interest rate, monetary policy. So I'd like to focus on three different points. First, lesson learned. It is more efficient to protect what we have than to let it be destroyed and rebuild everything from scratch. And this is exactly what we did when the pandemic hit us. We acted fast, in a decisive manner, united, to put in place a safety net, preserving companies, jobs, and household revenues. And this provided a solid basis for a fast and strong recovery. In the case of Spain, it is remarkable how short-term work schemes enabled to protect the relationship between workers and their companies. This was preserved, and this, together with the investments and reforms of the recovery plan, and in particular the labour market reform, implemented in January 2022, this explains the outstanding performance of the Spanish labour market. We have more than 20.5 million persons working right now. This is an all-time record, together with the 23.5 million persons actively searching for a job or working in Spain. These numbers have returned to pre-financial crisis level, not pre-pandemic, but pre-financial crisis level. We also see that temporary contracts are going down. They are down from the historical outstanding share, and they are fastly converging towards the European average. And this is leading to more stability in the labour market, in our economy, more human capital, better incomes for the families, and total factor productivity also increasing. Social security data in October, which have been published this morning, precisely, they confirm the strength and dynamism of the labour market in Spain, with more than 100,000 new jobs created in the course of the month, a new drop in unemployment, which is showing the remarkable resilience of the Spanish economy in this very complex international scenario. And I think our policy response in the last years explains consumption, investment, improvements in fiscal sustainability, also the good performance of the current account balance. We've been dealing with what's urgent without losing sight of what is important. And we've been, together with responding to the urgent daily needs, addressing the structural imbalances that have been dragging growth and prosperity in Spain for decades. So I think that thanks to the decisive intervention of the public sector, we have avoided much greater damage as happened in previous crises throughout our history. This brings me to the second lesson, which is that we are stronger when we act in a coordinated manner. We're stronger when we are together. And the public sector has a key role to play in ensuring a well-functioning economy. The response to the pandemic was coordinated at the global level. I was just speaking to the governor of the Bank of Brazil. We meet regularly with our partners throughout the world to try to coordinate our fiscal and monetary policies to reinforce our common safety net. And this financial safety net avoided a financial crisis, and these allowed governments to have the space to provide an effective response on the health, economic and social fronts. Monetary and fiscal policies were aligned, and this led also to this faster, stronger recovery than in the past. Actually, I think that the recovery, the speed and the strength of the recovery after the pandemic was higher than had been expected throughout the world. This indeed has been the case in Europe and in Spain. Third lesson, we need to ensure that the banking sector is healthy and strong so that it can be part of the solution, as was the case when responding to the pandemic. This time around, the Spanish banking sector channeled public guarantees to the real economy in an effective manner. The head of the National Development Bank, the ICO, is here today. I think that the National Development Bank, ICO, and the banks really worked very intensively, hand in hand, and there are many invisible people, many invisible persons that work day and night to make sure that those public guarantees were channeled to the real economy, and this was instrumental to keep the Spanish economy going throughout the pandemic. The banking sector provided credit, ensured liquidity for the whole economy, enabled the preservation of the economic tissue, the web of information and knowledge that can only be achieved with a lot of time and effort. And this certainly was key to enable the strong recovery during 2021, with a GDP annual growth of 5.5% in Spain, and it continues to be key today in such a complex international context. Indeed, after preserving and protecting during 2020, we are now at a stage of building and moving forward. Still dealing with urgent matters, but without losing sight of what's important in the medium term. And here again, the public sector and the banking sector, together with the rest of the financial sector, of course, and the rest of the economy, We have a central role to play in supporting the necessary investments to modernize our economies, to drive the twin green and digital transitions and ensure a more sustainable growth going forward, as well as increasing our strategic autonomy in the wake of this new geopolitical scenario that is in the making as we speak. Massive investments are needed in the coming years, and public-private cooperation is essential, indispensable really, to tackle current and future challenges at national and global level. La cooperación entre el sector público y el sector privado es fundamental para responder a los retos del presente y del futuro, como lo fue para responder de manera eficaz a la pandemia. No solo se trata de lograr un crecimiento robusto, sino garantizar que es sostenible, que es justo, que es inclusivo, un crecimiento que no deja a nadie atrás. Y este objetivo es especialmente importante en el contexto de la digitalización, que se ha acelerado exponencialmente como consecuencia de la pandemia y que está llevando a cambios profundos en el sector financiero, pero cambios aún más profundos en la vida, en la realidad de los ciudadanos. En este último año me siento satisfecha y orgullosa de decir que hemos trabajado bien con el sector bancario para responder a estos retos económicos y sociales. En primer lugar, acordamos proporcionar un servicio personalizado para nuestros mayores y las personas con discapacidad, porque fueron los más afectados por la pandemia y se encontraron sin las herramientas necesarias para responder, para poder seguir actuando ante la acelerada digitalización de los servicios financieros. Se acordó y se ha puesto en marcha un código de conducta y creo que ha sido positivo para mejorar la vida de las personas. De la misma manera, hace unas pocas semanas llegamos a un acuerdo para la prestación de servicios bancarios básicos de forma presencial en el 100% del territorio español. Tenemos que garantizar la inclusión financiera del conjunto de la población, buscando las vías más eficientes para adaptar estos servicios al ámbito rural, a nuestros pueblos y nuestras ciudades. Y en este momento, uno de los factores económicos más importantes, sin duda, es la normalización de la política monetaria, el hecho de que esta política monetaria ha dejado atrás los tipos de interés negativos, primero en Estados Unidos y ahora también en el ámbito de la zona euro. La rápida subida de los tipos de interés supone un nuevo reto para el conjunto de la economía y, sobre todo, para las familias. Está claro, y lo quiero dejar muy claro aquí, que el mercado hipotecario español es muy diferente hoy del pasado, dado el nivel de apalancamiento, la concesión responsable de crédito hipotecario, el relativamente bajo nivel de pendiente de créditos con tipo de interés variable. Lo cierto es que en este momento no se plantea en modo alguno un problema macroeconómico o un riesgo financiero. Precisamente estábamos ahora comentando con Ana Botín el hecho de que los niveles de mora y los riesgos son históricamente bajos y no se aprecia un riesgo macroeconómico en este sentido en el caso de la economía española. Pero también es cierto que la velocidad de la subida de los tipos de interés puede suponer una preocupación para muchas familias que pueden estar en riesgo de vulnerabilidad. Así que, más allá de los instrumentos de los que disponemos ya, las facilidades que introdujimos en la ley hipotecaria en 2019 para poder cambiar las hipotecas de tipo variable a tipo fijo, también los acuerdos y el código, el protocolo de compromiso social y sostenible de la banca para proporcionar alivio a los colectivos de personas vulnerables, yo creo que es importante y es urgente que trabajemos juntos para que el sector bancario proporcione a las familias, en estos tiempos tan inciertos, una confianza que será muy positiva para todos, para los ciudadanos afectados, pero también para el conjunto de la economía y para el conjunto de la sociedad. Confío que así sea, que pronto, con el trabajo intenso que estamos desarrollando, encontremos un acuerdo que será, como decía, importante para nuestra sociedad y que, una vez más, el sector bancario sea parte de la solución, acompañando al sector público que está, una vez más, también respondiendo con determinación y eficacia, poniendo un enorme volumen de recursos públicos a disposición para apoyar a los sectores más afectados, apoyar a las familias, apoyar al conjunto de la economía, para tratar de amortiguar el impacto negativo del shock de la inflación, la subida de los costes energéticos, para seguir apoyando el crecimiento y el empleo impulsar la inversión productiva de futuro con los fondos europeos y lograr también un reparto justo del coste de la guerra. Termino precisamente con este deseo, porque la paz es en este momento sin duda el principal instrumento de política económica y lamentablemente no está en nuestras manos, ¿no? Peace is right now the single most important economic policy factor. So I end with a wish, and that is that next time I participate in this conference, we can celebrate that the war is over, that growth is leading to a more sustainable world for future generations, that we took the right decisions now, as we did, to respond to the pandemic at this crucial point in time, as this new geopolitical order in the making is fast changing around us. And so I really hope that in the next conference we can really enjoy a very boring discussion because we will say, oh my God, there are no interesting, no complex matters at our tables. I close my remarks with this somewhat strange and unexpected wish, but after so many years of participating in these conferences and always sharing the view that there are history is accelerating and there's so many complex issues to tackle, both at the national level, at the European and at the global level, both within the public sector, but also in the private and financial sectors, I really hope that next time around we can safely say the war is over and we are bored and we can celebrate that together. So, without further ado, thank you very much. Muchas gracias.